Monte Nitzkowski, I've been talking to him a little bit before we started, and such an honor. I'm sitting next to a man who went to the Olympics as a swimmer, and then after that said, you know what, that's not enough. I'm coming back. I'm going to come back and be a coach. And his stories of coaching and helping and fine-tuning this sport is just amazing. And also his insights, as we talked about Rio, which I think he'll talk a little bit about as well, because he can give that unique perspective. And you can read all of his accomplishments, and we're going to outline some of them in this video. But like I said, not all of you got to sit here and chat with this fine gentleman, and it's just an honor that he made the time, came here, and is sharing his story, and we're here to honor him, so thank you so very much. And I would love to play the video right now so we could kind of highlight all of the different accomplishments that he has made in his 80-plus years.
Monte Nitzkowski began his Hall of Fame aquatic career at Fullerton Junior College, but soon transferred to UCLA to further develop his swimming and water polo talents. Earning two-time All-American honors at UCLA, Monte went on to train with the U.S. Olympic team in Annapolis and qualified to represent his country in the 200-meter butterfly at the 1952 Olympics in Helsinki. But Monte's real passion was for water polo, and he returned for his second Olympic appearance in 1968 as an assistant coach for the U.S. Olympic water polo team. Following the success of the 1968 Olympic team, Nitzkowski was selected to lead the Olympic water polo squad, this time as head coach in 1972, 1980, and 1984. His teams earned the bronze in 1972 and went undefeated in 1984, bringing home the silver medal. In addition to his Olympic coaching success, Nitzkowski coached the U.S. water polo team in 5 Pan American Games, where his teams won 4 gold medals. But Monte's greatest claim to fame is no doubt his remarkable 35-year water polo coaching career at Long Beach City College, where he led his teams to an unbelievable 32 conference championships. Previously inducted into the International Swimming Hall of Fame and the UCLA Athletic Hall of Fame, the National Polish-American Sports Hall of Fame congratulates Monte Nitzkowski on his 2016 induction.
And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you, Monte Nitzkowski.
Well, what a fantastic place this is. I'm overwhelmed at what I see here tonight. And I attend a lot of these things, and people have done just a fantastic job. There's absolutely no question. First of all, I'd like to thank the Board of Directors of the National Polish Sports Hall of Fame for this great honor. Most being honored here tonight are in a number of Hall of Fame, so it threw me no, it didn't throw me at all. When I was asked earlier, what does this Hall of Fame mean to you? And in truth, I said, it's the most important Hall of Fame that I've ever been admitted to. And I mean that sincerely, and I want to go on and explain that just a little bit. My grandparents came to this country on a packet boat in 1871. They landed in Connecticut, spent a year in Hartford, and then got on a wooden boxcar with a wood-burning stove and a brand new baby and headed west. And they ended up settling in Mankato, Minnesota, where my grandparents raised 16 children, 8 boys, 8 girls, and the significant thing to me is of that group, 8 of them got college degrees at that time. So it shows you a little bit. At any rate, excuse me, just a minute. My father was the youngest of the 16. He attended Hamline University and the University of Minnesota and served in both World Wars. And they're the reason. They're all gone now, but that's the reason this is the most important Hall of Fame I've ever been in, because I know how much it would mean to them. And I just want to really express that before I get started. Secondly, I want to thank Paul and the whole group here for getting me back here. My physical condition, it wasn't that easy this time. To my son Greg, his wife Barbara, and just some of the special things that happened that I was able to get back here and do what I wanted to do. Okay, my story, and you've heard it. It's mixed. It's really about the Olympic Games. I served in the Olympic movement for over 48 years as a swimmer in the 52 Helsinki Games, coached 5 times, and then 1 time as an administrator. So at any rate, that's basically the start of it. I was a senior at UCLA in 1951 during the height of the Korean War. If you were not in medical school, and I'd been accepted to law school, but if you weren't in medical school, you were gone. And I graduated June 20th, and on the 13th of July was on active duty with the United States Navy. I'm very pleased to find out once I got going that the Navy had a program for the upcoming Olympic year where they were going to train track and field athletes, swimmers and such, back at the Naval Academy. And so they selected 12 swimmers from throughout the country, and I was selected as one of those swimmers. 6 of those swimmers went on to make the Olympics that year in Helsinki. So great job, Navy, and I'll always appreciate that. Okay, getting started, and kind of what I want to do is run through a number of Olympic Games and just talk in brief about some of the high and low points. We're just around the corner from the next Olympics. And over 48 years, I watched a lot of changes. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about some of those. The first thing I'd like to say is that the 1952 team was the first team to fly to the Olympic Games. Before that, the United States Olympic team always went by shipboard. And when I tell that at a high school graduation or at a high school banquet, they'd go, "My gosh, this guy must be older than dirt." And they were right. The Olympics were a complete career changer for me. When I walked onto that stadium floor, the Finns, who were extremely receptive to the United States at that time, this is a politically charged Olympic Games, rose to their feet, went crazy, and I said, "Hey, I got to repeat this experience somehow in my life. I've got to do that." So it was a career changer. When I got out, I went back to school, picked up a master's of teaching credential, and was fortunate enough to be hired by a community college, and spent 34 years coaching swimming and water polo. So believe me, the Olympics changed my whole thing of life. Let's talk specifically about the 52 games because they were pretty interesting. It was during the height of the Cold War. The Russians were in for the first time. The Germans and the Japanese had not been allowed to compete in 48, but were brought back in for these games. So there was a lot going on and a lot of excitement. The medal count started with Jim McKay and some of the others really jumped on it years later, but it was Stockman's department store in downtown Helsinki that started posting a medal count. and of course that thing stuck. One of the interesting things, and again, these are just little small potatoes, but to athletes, they're the big things. In Helsinki, they had 6 separate dining halls. Well, all the teams are there for at least a month and divided into 6 language-speaking halls. Well, 2 or 3 weeks into the time in the village, everybody's trying to get into each other's dining hall, playing like they could speak a language that they did not know, borrowing credentials, doing anything they could to find a way to get in and get a different kind of meal. So there were 6 different dining halls there in 52. My most unique experience, and I think it's a lotto experience, was in Helsinki. Sandy Lee, the great Olympic diver, and myself, we were a little late, tad late, and had missed the bus to the training site. My coach was Matty Mann from Michigan, and Matty liked us to be there on time. So, but at least Sandy Lee had some ability to put pressure, and he got us a car in a hurry, and they whisked us over. But I was going to be late to practice. So I was pulling my suit on one leg at a time as I went racing around and into the foot bath and had this big impact with this gentleman, knocked him almost to the floor. His security kind of writing him up. His security wasn't too happy about it, but it was Prince Philip, the Queen's husband. And he just remarked, "A tad bit late to practice, son." And I said, "You're right on there." So it'd be an interesting story to start with, but there was another sequel to it, because in 1967, he gave the opening address at the Pan American Games. It was pouring rain. I and my assistant coach ran for the bus as soon as the Prince was through talking. We were whipping down the parking lot with this big limousine with the Prince in it, pulled out from underneath the bleachers. Neither one of us in this rainstorm can stop. We are spread out across the hood of his Rolls Royce or whatever it was. Down came the window again this time, and he said, any of you lads hurt? And I'll always regret not being quick enough to say, remember me? Because I was the guy that did it. And then years later, doing a clinic in Scotland, I had the chance to tell William, who was a water polo player but was not there because the Queen Mother was ill. I was doing these clinics, and I would have loved to tell him the story about his grandfather. But at any rate, 52, interesting games, as I say, one of the better games, certainly. My first Olympic coaching experience was in Mexico City. We moved the team to Colorado Springs, lived at 9,000 feet, slept at 9,000 feet, came down to the Air Force Academy, trained twice a day, and then back up to sleep at 9,000 feet. We did this for 6 straight weeks, and when we left Mexico City, and we flew we went right to Denver, and then flew directly in altitude to Mexico City. We were really in great shape, and the team made a giant move there from Tokyo up about 5-6 spots, and we knew we were starting to make some real progress. And the biggest kicker in Mexico City for us was dysentery. The medical staff gave us all kinds of things, but in water polo, the goalkeeper plays above the water, so his mouth is always up, his or hers. We're strong in girls water polo now too. But the field players, their heads down in the water. We played one ball game where our only substitute, we were starting a goalkeeper, and the other sub was our reserve goalkeeper on the bench. So dysentery was a big factor in Mexico City. I guess that's not news. The Mexicans continued with the 6 dining setup, and I keep saying this because I'm going to bring it to a point eventually, but you had to trade credentials, argue, play like you spoke another language if you wanted to get in and try some good Italian, Polish, or some other thing besides what our dining room was serving. Again, I would say one of the most interesting experiences I've ever had at the Olympic Games was sitting in the stadium when Bob Beamon did his long jump. And that stadium just went quiet when this jump. And I turned to one of our young players, Gary Shearer out of Stanford, who was an engineering student. I said, Gary, convert those meters into feet for me. I want to hear how far he really went. Well, he converted it. And I said, boy, you're a lousy engineering student to be going to Stanford. But he wasn't. He was right on. And I'd have to say that was one of the, really great Olympic experiences away from our events that I saw. Munich in '72. Wow, it speaks for itself. It should have been one of the greatest ever, and ended in tragedy. In Munich, I had become head coach. We played a 9 straight game, all with a single ref. We won the bronze medal, and it was our first medal in 40 years. It could have been gold or silver. We were playing that well. We were a young team, kind of a Cinderella team, but the kids just did great. And so at any rate, we didn't get gold or silver there, but we did get our first medal in 40 years. Munich finally changed the dining process, which makes all the sense in the world, to put all the athletes together under one roof, have all of those various foods there so everybody can share in what they wanted, and get a chance to chit-chat, talk about the day's activities, and just do all the things that are important around an Olympic Games. So I give Munich credit for that as I continue with my dining room stories. The thing that we all know of Munich is the tragedy of the terrorists. And this we have to hold as we look forward to, and down the line to all these games, and I'll talk about that in a moment as well. I do want to speak on that moment because I was the closest person in the world to what happened. And the reason that was that I had come back into the village at about 3:15 a.m. We'd won that first medal in 40 years. We'd been celebrating with the families at a restaurant. I was given a ride back and was walking through the garage in the Olympic settlement when a Canadian, actually a Hungarian Canadian, one of their coaches, said, "You're the American water polo coach," and then was very complimentary. We started walking together, and their quarters came up before ours. And just trying to get a relative thing, I guess just looking over here, I can't tell if that's a speaker or what, but that distance away were the 2 doors. One was the entrance to the Canadians where they were living. Next was the Israelis. I looked at my watch at 3:30 and I said, really, I've enjoyed this conversation, but I have to take my fellow coach to the airport at 6 and I got to get a couple hours sleep. And so we shook hands. I watched him through the door, took another look at my watch. It was like 3:28. And, there's various guesses when the terrorists, but sometime in the next 12 to 15 seconds, they were standing where I was. And to this day, I maybe wouldn't be back here in Troy because I'm sure they would have taken us out as well. So again, you get a lot of unique experiences besides your own events. And that certainly was one of them, Munich '72. After the '72 games, I pleaded with the United States Water Polo to start a national team. It fell on deaf ears, so with a team that had a bronze, averaged only 22 years of age, would have stayed together, that plan was dropped. Result, we did not even qualify a team for Montreal in '76. They came back to me and they said, Howard, I think you had a pretty good idea back there. How would you like to be the new national head coach, start a national program? So we did, and started that in 1977 to get prepared for the Moscow Games. Again, disappointment. We had victories over the Russians in '69 and '70, solid wins. We had a solid win over Yugoslavia, and the Russians got the gold medal. We had a solid win over the Yugoslavs, who got the silver medal, and we stayed at home because President Carter decided to boycott those games. So again, fast 4 years of getting ready for something that never happened. That takes me, as I near the end of this thing, LA '84. There were little training funds left after the boycott, and we really didn't go to full training until 1983. When we were able to do that, we moved quickly, played a great Olympic Games. It's already been mentioned. We never lost a game. The reason we got the silver medal is that the rule at that time was goal differential against common opponents. So when they decided that, when they looked at goal difference, the Yugoslavs had a slight goal difference better, and they got the gold medal. 4 years in Seoul, Korea, that rule was changed forever for Olympic Games to be played off to a final. And I wish they'd been decided that 4 years earlier, and that's for sure. I served as an administrator in Atlanta, was down in the village, came back with my roommate. We were staying at the Baptist Hospital and nurses' quarters in Atlanta, and when the room was just rocked by a bomb. And of course, that was the next step in this mess. And it shows you that you can never forget security is the the critical issue now in the modern games. At any rate, this brings us to Sydney, and then I'm just going to close in 2 minutes here by just simply saying, Sydney, the Aussies ran a wonderful games and terrific facilities, and but this brings me back. This is why I started with the dining halls clear back in '52. You know, athletes do like to eat well. I got up early. Now we're just in one main dining hall. I got up early to go have breakfast, sat down. The Japanese Olympic women's volleyball team walked in right after me, and I had taught for 8 years. I'd worked with the Japanese Olympic men's water polo team for 2 weeks a year for 8 years. So I knew their eating habits. Well, here they come. The three coaches have dried fish, tea, and a little bit of rice. And here come their women's Olympic team. They'd added a McDonald's. McDonald's has gotten into the franchise. And here come the girls. They all had 2 egg muffins. They had some type of fries and either orange juice or Cokes. So I watched the older gals eat in the old tradition, and the younger ones were all right to McDonald's as their first step. But it does show those dining halls make a difference and a change. I want to say good luck to all the athletes going to Rio. I think it is a challenge. I think everyone knows that. And we've got to be on our guard there in a number of ways. Finally, I'd like to thank everyone for attending tonight, and I'd like to thank everyone for this very, very great honor. Tremendous. Thank you.
Monte, if you stay here for a minute, I'm going to present you with the plaque. Thank you very much, Monte. I'd like to present Monte with his induction plaque. They've been on display for most of the evening, but I'd like to read the plaque. It's to Monte Nitzkowski, two-time All-American swimmer and 1952 Olympian, water polo coach at Long Beach City College, 32 conference championships from 1954 to 1989. Coached the U.S. team in 4 Olympics, earned a bronze medal in 1972, silver in 1984, and gold in 3 Pan Am Games. So our congratulations as we welcome Monte Nitzkowski to the National Polish American Sports Hall of Fame. Let me get my glasses off here. And Pete wants a picture right there.
Okay. Let me get mine off.